4 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village. Convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. And Royal Fidelity Bank and Trust. Money at work.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. I trust and pray your weekend was one that was blessed and safe. As we invite you to be a part of this week's discussion, we just want to start things off with our good friends from the Family Resource Center. So please, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
And good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks for joining us as we invite to our studio Ms. Brenda Dawkins, the program facilitator over at the Family Resource Center. Hey, thank you to you and your team, and thanks for coming and sharing with us. And hopefully as parents, as families, we'll work together to build stronger communities through a more interconnected family. So good afternoon to you, Mama.
Good afternoon, Sterling. It's always a pleasure for the Family Resource Center to be represented here. And today we are here, we'll be talking about what we refer to as Teen Toolbox. We know it's going to be a toss-up time for parents as starting this week, a lot of teens are also out and on break, and they are going to be all over the place. So we want to be able to consider them as we consider ourselves as parents too, because we can only control what is within our remit to do so. So we want to encourage parents to support their children and their teens in particular, and to understand what's happening to them. And that's some of the responses we get a lot of time from parents, oh, my teen is this, or my teen won't listen, or my teen don't talk to me, or my teen only wants to do this, that's some of what's happening is not really their fault. It's because of what's happening in their biological makeup. They're going through that developmental stage. And I mean, it seems so often we as adults forget too that we had those moments. So your teenagers are contending with the throes of hormones and the whole brain process working. I won't go into the detail of that. I'm not the neuro person, but to consider that these developmental stages are at this point in time, our teens are, some of them confused. Some of what's happening to their development is new to them. They are grappling with that themselves. And so when we see behaviors, it's not because they, like some of them will say, I hate you. Yeah, if you're a parent and you didn't hear that when you're doing the right thing, then, but to just be empathetic, to talk with them. They more want someone who will hold their hand and listen to them and have a heart to understand them more than they do want advice per se. Yeah.
Now, many times, parents sometimes may want to be the child's friend, as it were. Can you still be the friend, the confidant, and the parent, or is it,
we need children to be children.
Mm-hmm.
We need them to grow up and experience their childhood. We at FRC, we really encourage parents to let the child be your friend, because we want them to experience their years of growing up. We don't want them to be taking on too much burden. That doesn't mean friend. It depends on how it's connoted by the adult. It's not that you're hunky-dory and lovey-dovey with your child, but it is, what do I tell her? It's my child. I need to tell them everything. They need to know everything. And then that becomes a pressure on them. So if that's the way you're looking at being the friend with your child, then I would say no, that's a no-no. But being there for your child, helping your child to understand you and you understand them, it's also sometimes good for you to explain to them some of the experiences that you might have had that weren't so favorable, so that they could know that, you make mistake too. So when they make mistakes, they don't feel as if, okay, they are the worst thing in the world, but that they can overcome it. So letting your child be your friend is determined on the interpretation that you are putting to it.
Okay. And as you shared in this teen toolbox, sometimes it's the developmental stages, societal pressures, peer expectations, a lot of things probably now that are different than what parents had when they were younger. But the same consequence, you act out, you throw a tantrum, whatever it is that we may say. You're asking us not to look at that as a child's being unruly and disrespectful.
Right.
Just that they have all these things going on.
Yes, it is almost like a rite of passage that teenagers have to behave that way when during their teen years, the outburst, the anger, or the silence. Some of them just go into their silent moment, the banging of the doors, and the you don't know anything. That type of, it's a natural state and it's a natural thing that's happening. So expect the tantrums, but do not take them personal.
Okay.
A lot of times as parents, we tend to take it personal when our teens lash out at us.
So then would this sort of teen years range from 12 teen to 11 teen?
That's a great question as well, because our children are maturing earlier now than we think. We see more mature behaviors, but we know what teen is classified in terms of as it relates to the 13 to the 18 or the 19 and the age range. But we have to observe our children. We have to watch their developmental stage, and we can't just look at a child and say, you're not even a teenager, you're only 10 or you're 12 and you're behaving like you're a teen, because maybe they are, because if their developmental stage is advancing, then that will happen as well. And researchers have shown that a child's brain is not fully developed until they are 25 years old. So you and I are not yet fully developed, right? Because we haven't reached 25, right?
There you go.
Exactly. So, yeah. So we are thinking, and because sometimes we'll say, you're a big girl now, or you're a big boy now, you should be. But if we consider some of these researches that were done and what they found, we'll realize that they're still developing, and they still need that guidance, and they still need that support. They still need you to be by their side. And whereas we just have to listen to them. That's one of the things we don't do a lot as parents, to listen to our kids. As soon as they open their mouths, we rebut with something. And many times if we listen, we would hear some of what they're saying more. It is said that 25% of children between the ages of 16 and 21 row with their parents weekly. So it's like it's almost becoming a part of your daily interaction with those teens between 16 and 21. And the same age, you have 16% rowing with their fathers on a weekly basis. But it's not all gone, because there is the positive side of it, where they say that 67% of these children also confide in their mothers. And 50% will confide in their fathers. So it's not a total loss as it is. They still want you. They still need you to be there for them despite what is happening. And we think that, okay, she's big, she can manage it. They know they need you, and they know they need you. They will behave as if they don't, but they really do. And we need to support them. Yeah.
So as parents, I mean, especially if it's the first child, or if you have more than one, you may deliberately, but most probably unconsciously compare. Well, I know your sister was like this is a good thing.
Yes.
And so we do that.
Yes. We tend to do that a lot. We tend to compare our children. And children are smart and they think deeply. You know, a lot of times, only recently too, I had a parent who tell me, oh, she's just not like her sister. You know, and I'm like, of course she's not like her sister.
She's her.
Yeah, she is her. She has her own personalities. She might even question some of the beliefs or standards that you have set for her, whilst the other one might not have done so. She might like something differently, have her likes, have her dislikes. So we want them to be their unique self as long as, and that's why from an early age, we encourage parents to have rules and consequences, you know, so they understand what are some natural consequences that they might face, or what are some, you know, so they know when they're stepping out of the line. As parents, I think the last time I was here, I mentioned how important it is for you to have, for your child to understand the value system that the family is built on. Because there are some children who they're not too sure what it is. And I know the old cliche that we always say here in Cayman is who you for, right? Means that when people know that, they know what you stand for, they know, and when you go out there, you know what is expected of you. So we want to make sure our children understand what the family value is. Yeah.
That's important for the family to understand, communicate that, and you know, by example, exhibit it constantly.
Exactly.
But teens, you know, just the other day we were teenagers, so we remember.
I know, very well.
But as adults, we sometimes can see our behaviors and wonder, you know, how teens navigate that. So as part of this teen toolbox that you have, what else can we draw upon? Okay,
so what we want to say is that I did mention briefly a little, but that it's natural that children are going to question your authority because they are trying to move from that independence where they dependence where they were relying on you as the caregiver to do things, and you are gently easing them into that independent stage. And so what is more important here is that whenever there's an event, it is how you respond to it that's going to determine the outcome, right? As I said before, you can only control what you can control. So the child might shout or yell or slam the door or talk back. Is that the time for you to run after them and say, who are you slamming door, or who are you? Or do you take back and think, you know what, she's going through a stage, I'll handle this, I am the big one here, in a moment, I'll deal with it at another time. I don't like to say deal, but I'll handle the situation at a more convenient time. So it might be later at dinner, you know, you're all eating and talking, or you're driving to somewhere and you said, oh, by the way, when you did this the other day, I felt this way. And so, you know, you have that conversation in a moment when it's calm, because if you react instantly, then that could have all negative repercussions for you as well.
Right. Well, Scripture reminds us, never discipline in anger.
In anger, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
But I know that you and your team over at FRC do incredible work, and you always have, you know, demanding and taxing and schedule, as you shared before we came on. But before you get back to your I don't know how you manage to work that schedule. What else do you want to leave with our listeners as we look at this teen toolbox?
Yes. So just to hint, really, as I said at the offset, that teens are going to be out there we are going to see them whether we are their parents, their guardian, or whether we are just a community member. We want to show them the respect that we want from them as well. That's one of the things we think, because they're children, they don't deserve respect. And it cuts both ways, as it were. In terms of what we're doing at FRC, it's so many things, but right now we are wrapping up our co-parenting session on the end of this month, our 10-week co-parenting session. So if there's anyone who wants to register for that, we offer one-on-one individual parent coaching sessions. So whether it is whatever age it is, we run groups on positive disciplines. We have a family skills session that's coming up now. You'll forgive me if I don't remember exactly what but that's coming up soon. We also are focusing on the SNAP camp for our young people, and that is almost full at this point in time. But we are running that, and we have so many more programs and activities that we're coming up in August. We have the Domestic Violence Intervention Training Program, which is a 3-day workshop that we run with the frontline professionals who are working with domestic violence, whether it is with perpetrators or it is with survivors. And we do this 3 days. It's a lot more than sensitizing. We look at the laws. We look at what other agencies are doing. So we have you wonder, and I can hear you asking, so when do you all take a break? And yes, hopefully that we can work that in somewhere along the line. But it's all about education, because the more knowledge we have of what's happening to our youngsters from before they are born, right through their developmental stage, and also for our parents, because many of our parents have to learn coping strategies now that are different from how their parents had raised them to cope with what's happening globally and here on our little island as well. So for us, just to say, our number is 949-0006, or you can email us at frc@gov.ky. Go to our web page, to our Facebook page, to our Instagram pages, and from time to time we post suggestions, ideas, and even some of our presentations that you might have missed.
Right. Well, Ms. Brenda, to you and your team, thanks very much, and share with us. And as parents, recognize that as you shared, our teens still need our guidance, our love,
yes,
as we develop and help them to find their space. Have a wonderful, enjoyable, safe, and productive week.
Thank you so much, Sterling, and you, and to you and your team. God bless.
Amen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to pause and take a short break, but when you come back, share with us. Got a few things in store, including Miss Katina Anglin, and later on the show after 2, we'll talk to the good folks at Health City. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Cybercrime happens online or through the technology we use every day. Anyone can be a victim of cybercrime, whether you are a young person being bullied or harassed online, or an older person or business who's been scammed out of money or personal data. Cybercrime is an issue that touches all of us. The Cayman Islands government has therefore created an online resource to help keep you cyber safe in an ever-changing world.
In online situations, it is better to be cyber safe than sorry. Learn now to protect yourself against cybercrime. Visit gov.ky/cybersafe.
The 20th Annual Talent Exposition of the Arts is here.
Are you ready for some talent tonight?
Presented by the New Self-Help Community Foundation. Coming to the stage Sunday, July 25th at the Hartwell Theater. Don't miss. Awesome performances by Liana DaCosta, J.C. Patrick, Rico Rolando.
Yeah, she twerking off a band and I'm about to make a dance, yeah.
Radiance Dance Studio, Mariah Praise, Dream Chasers Cayman, James at Anglin and Son, SI, Center Point Dance Studio, and UCCI Dancers. Part of the proceeds from the Talent Exposition of the Arts go to support the John Gray High School Music Department. Prepaid tickets at Funky Tangs and Winners Circle Sports. $10 or $15 at the gate. The 2021 Talent Exposition of the Arts, Sunday, July 25th at the Hartwell Theater. Gates open at 5:30 p.m. Show starts at 6:30. Get your tickets today.
Now you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere.
Everywhere.
Can you hear me now? Everywhere. Everywhere.
Yes, right from your Android or iPhone. Download the Radio Cayman app now on your Android or iOS phone.
The Radio Cayman app
is where you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere you go.
Everywhere we go, everywhere we go.
Find it in the Google Store, the Apple Store, or use the link at www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Yes, now you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for joining us here on this another edition of Talk Today on this marvelous Monday. As we invite you to call and have some open line, 949-8037, or toll free with the compliments of Flow, 1-800-534-8255, or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. I've had an earlier chance to chat with a few individuals who again were sharing that as we have now a new government in place, they get ready to go into the House of Parliament in a few short weeks come July, that they're going to be sort of presenting themselves, the strategic policy statement and their plans and expectations of their administration. And one individual is sharing that as the Premier leads the charge, championing the environment. It is good to see government make a concerted effort towards future generations by doing things now to protect the environment. One of the members in the group, she shared that maybe this would be an opportune time when government considers expending funds, that they would look very closely. And I know that we had Nobi as well as many others sort of share similarly. Maybe this will be a time to consider either A, put in proper policies in place relative to the developments so that there are more and more accessible public open spaces, but even acquiring a number of properties to have as either public parks, whether it's just left in their natural state and you can create within a level of sensitivity ways of navigating those properties, but acquiring properties on the coastline on all three islands. She shared that if we look at many of the lands in the country, are they owned by private individuals, and if so, to what extent in the public spaces, we may not necessarily, she said, see the importance now or understand the urgency now, because there is still, relatively speaking, some undeveloped lands across the country. But if we were to go into highly populated and developed areas, we can see increasingly that not only is there a challenge with people getting to and from, say, the coastline, but when there is available space, whether it's publicly owned or not, that is very crowded, or much more so than it was 5 years ago or 50 years ago. So what will it be 5 years from now or 50 years from now? But what is your opinion on that? Because I think it's some have shared, maybe we need to look at that. And a lot of the lands that are privately held that people are using, well, what happens down the road when those lands are developed or that use is somehow interrupted legally? You're not allowed to trespass on another's property. Will there be a claim for some sort of right because you've been using it for the longest time? Will there be an enforcement of the private property rights to ensure that people aren't trespassing or acquiring such a right? Your perspective, 949-8037, or toll free with compliments of flow at 1-800-534-8255. Now, naturally, you'll share that it is for any government when they're deciding what to do, how to spend the limited, funds that are available, how to consider the idea that they need to choose between doing this or doing that, or doing this now versus doing that. They have to make those hard and fast choices. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. Now, there was something that the Honorable Deputy Premier had sent out recently, and I think many had a chance to look at, and he was talking about the projected, deficit, for the country, and as they get into looking at the whole issue of where the country is, he had shared, that the actual deficit for last year, 2020, was, some almost 50 million more than the 38 million that was, forecasted. So almost 90 million. And in his sort of calculations, the government is probably, projecting a deficit around the $200 million mark for this year, 2021. Now, when we look at the information he shared relative to the government-owned companies and the statutory authorities, that was another approximately 60 million. So we are fortunate enough that there is a level of financial competence, there is the prudence, and as the Minister of Finance shared, the notion that the government has the commitment to trying to reducing that level of forecasted deficit, of between 130 and 140 million to another 100 million for this year. So with that discipline, with that commitment, and with the country coming on board, we can see that a little bit of what our parents and their parents practice. You sacrifice, you do service above self, and you make the commitment to the country. Now, can we do likewise for ourselves? Are we, in our expectations, asking the government to maybe provide more than is reasonably necessary or reasonably possible at this time? And it is equally possible that we ourselves, as citizens, as individuals, as corporate entities, are we able to do more for ourselves together? Well, your perspective, 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. I must also share, I'm glad to see the interest from all in our society when it comes to education, wanting the very best for our children, the best instruction, the safest environment, the most loving and nurturing environment when it comes to the teaching and the learning. From the personnel there, from the vendors and volunteers as they've shared, from the teachers and the others who deliver a sort of academic instruction. But then the idea has been broached often, and I'm grateful to those this morning who you can see the passion, their love for this country and its children, that we again consider reintroducing the middle school component. Now, some would share that in an environment where the children grow together, from the very first day of school to graduation, from that early tender years to 16, 17, 18, 19, that they're graduating, if they're all in that environment growing together, then that may be, something to consider. But where, as we have it, primarily now within our system, our children start off in primary school, and then at age 10, 11, or thereabouts, they all congregate into the high school. And you'll have a mixing of, 10, 11 years olds with 16, 17, 18, maybe 19 are we potentially creating an environment for things that are less than savory, or less than instructive, or less than safe? And so, as the wonderful ladies in particular shared, if we have the middle school system, then you take that group of students at 10, 11 to 13 to 14, and you put them into an environment and transition them for high school later on, so that the disparity isn't as great as 10, 11, and 18, 19, but maybe 14, 15, 18, 19. Still, significant difference in the years, different levels of maturity and physical development, but not as glaring as a 10-year-old and an 18-year-old. But what is your thoughts on that? Should we consider putting a system such that in order to not just reduce the numbers and give the teaching ratio an improvement, but putting the younger children and keeping them closer to their age groups, as what the practice was in years gone? I know prior to that it was that it is as it is now, where you leave primary school and you go straight to high school. When the 80s rolled around and the government of the day had the middle school introduced, well, we could consider whether that would be an option for us to reintroduce. What are your thoughts? 8949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. We'll pause and take a short break. When we come back, we invite your calls, invite you to share your thoughts with us, and see what your perspective may be relative to certain things. So again, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. We'll pause and take a break. When we come back, more talk today.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Freedom, Cayman Brack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Did you know that defective airbags can cause serious injury or even death if not repaired immediately? Right now, millions of vehicles around the world are under recall for faulty Takata airbags, and yours could be one of them. At Vant Motors, our priority is to make sure the Toyota or Ford you drive is safe. So we are offering customers a free, fast, and easy airbag swap out if your vehicle was manufactured in 2016 or earlier. Find out if you need to have new airbags installed by emailing your Ford or Toyota vehicle's VIN or vehicle identification number to service@vantmotors.com, or stop by Vamp's Service Center or call us at 949-2245. Don't risk it. Get the airbags in your Toyota or Ford checked for free at Vant Motors on Walkers Road.
When I was growing up in Cayman, Sundays was always a big day for our family. Everyone would go to Granny's house for Sunday dinner after church. Even today, I can still smell the aroma of all the delicious food we used to eat, especially the hot, fresh baked bread smothered in butter, topped off with our favorite pan cheese. These days, I don't have enough time to cook and bake, but I do my best to carry on the Sunday tradition of family meals, and being able to get hot, fresh bread with no preservatives or additives from Caribbean Bakery is a big help for me. Shh, don't tell them, they still think I baked it. Caribbean Bakery, now delivering every Sunday to McGrath's grocery store in Eastern Avenue and Marina Drive. Caribbean Bakery, made Cayman fresh.
Talk today. but I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us as we have a chance now to continue sort of our civics education. The Christian Association with Civics and Political Education was Katina Anglin together with Brother Joey Ebanks. Well, a blessed good afternoon and welcome and happy and marvelous and magnificent Monday. Katina, how are you?
I am absolutely fabulous. Dwayne, good afternoon to you. Good afternoon, Cayman Islands. Good afternoon, Brother Joey. And good afternoon, Paul, there in the studio, keeping control of all the things. God bless us all today.
Amen. Well, isn't Paul looking, what is it, marvelous? In the words of Billy Joel, looks marvelous. Well, Billy Crystal. Look at him, see the smile.
Who is Billy Crystal again?
He is the guy that founded Joey Diamond.
So, forget I asked that question, right?
Yeah, he's a comedian, you're probably too young to remember that. Joey probably, no, he's much older.
that was a compliment, Brother Joey. Your legs, your days are long upon this earth because of your uprightness. So
there you go.
I was less affected by the reference to my age than trying to figure out who this person was.
Billy Crystal.
Still don't know.
I kind of remember. Did he have brown hair? Then he had hair.
A nose and some hair or something. Yeah.
Okay.
He would say, marvelous. That's marvelous.
Mm-hmm.
No man, Billy Crystal. He hosted some awards one time. He did one show with when the Rock was a flying angel or some sort of tooth fairy or something. He did. Yeah, he's a comedian, actor, funny guy. And like most short people, good guy.
Yes. Yeah. But I can speak on behalf of a couple of short people that I know. When they say good things come in small packages, that is often very, very true.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
such as yourself, and be careful when I'm referring to his height over here, but Brother Joey as well. But I have this tendency to think that everybody else who doesn't see me straight in my eyes is short. And so I never forget one time I was giving a description to somebody and I said, yeah, man, short. He said, but we can't be talking about the same person. We went through the whole genealogy and everything, and they said, that is the same person. I said, okay, good. They said, well, how you call him short? I said, I got to look down on him. That don't make him short.
Well, the only person that probably wouldn't look down at you would be Coach Woodall.
Yeah.
The rest of us have 6 foot. Yeah, true.
Yeah, but anyway.
6'4" frame of the pose and Katina.
Not 6'4", but
close now.
Still tall. Yeah. Still tall. Beautifully tall.
Amen.
And grateful. And it's really, you have to be grateful with who we are, because God doesn't make any mistakes. No. Each one of us is just perfect in our creation, in our existence, And when we get around to accepting that I am perfectly made, I need to treat my body right, because it is the temple of the Lord. I need to take care of it. I need to keep it strong and healthy, because I have some responsibility in this game too. But truthfully, I'm perfectly made. The color of my hair, the color of my eyes, it all comes together into this individual who the world knows as Katina Anglin, who God knows as his child, who I know as me. And I love me.
Yeah.
I love me. I love you guys too, but I love me.
Yeah, a friend reminds me, you can't love if you don't have love for yourself, right? You can't give what you don't have, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting. It is amazing how we look at things, and maybe wisdom does come with the ages. We start to be appreciative of what is around us, be gracious as well as grateful.
And, if we're looking at uniqueness of individuals, right, consider a zebra and their foal. How does that zebra's child distinguish that zebra with all the rest of the stripes around it? But there's something unique about its mother that it picks up on, and it says, no, that stripe there that little curve and that straight there, that's what's unique to my mother. Yeah. That's my mother. And even though, you know, in a herd of zebras, us with our untrained eye might look at it and say, well, they're all one and the same, and disregard them in their individualism. But the truth of it is that each and every thing on the face of this earth is marvelously, magnificently, fearfully, perfectly made. And we should be grateful for who we are.
But God is in all of it, eh? Even animals.
God is in all of it.
All of it.
All of it.
Because I've seen video where lioness have come upon young deer and handed them back over rather than kill it and eat it. So God is in everything.
In everything.
This is completely contrary to that lion's characteristics. It's to kill and eat. But rather protected it, handed it over, walked away. You understand? There's the amount of video that is now surfacing on how animals are beginning to operate amongst themselves. It is completely contrary to what we know. And so we know God is in the midst of that. God is in the midst of all of that. And so we must accept that and understand that. God is ever present in all things. All things. You know, and I tell you the truth. When it comes to the love thing, I didn't know love until I knew God. And you know, yeah, I thought I did, but when I came to know God and discover the love of God was when I truly discovered what love really is, and that's a thing that where you love your enemy, and it's completely that too is completely contrary to what the world expresses, and so you learn to love people that really despise you, do things to harm you, are very malicious against you, and you love them. You might have a little spark of resentment towards them, but very quickly the Holy Spirit and the love of God pushes that aside and manifests itself for you to love them. So God is love.
Love, man. Well, when we come back from our news break, let's get into our discussion. Certainly appreciate both of you joining us, and hopefully through this we can start to share that love, feel that love, and be that love. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. The Chief Medical Officer, Dr. John Lee, reports that 450 COVID-19 tests have been carried out since this was last reported on Thursday, June 24th. There were no positive results. The vaccine supply for clinics on Grand Cayman has been replenished. Vaccine clinics have resumed and are now offering both first and second doses. In international news, Australia's Prime Minister Scott Morrison has met national leaders for emergency talks on how to tackle a spike in COVID-19 infections. An outbreak in Sydney linked to the highly contagious Delta variant has grown to 128 cases. The U.S. says it has carried out airstrikes against Iran-backed militias near the Iraq-Syria border in response to drone attacks on its forces in Iraq. A Pentagon spokesman said the strikes targeted operational and weapons storage facilities at 3 locations. President Biden had been clear he would act to protect U.S. personnel. A powerful Iraqi militia alliance, the Popular Mobilization Forces, said 4 members of one faction were killed and threatened to retaliate. Binance, the world's biggest cryptocurrency exchange, has been issued a warning by the UK's financial regulator. The Financial Conduct Authority has ruled that the firm cannot conduct any regulated activity in the UK. It also advised people to be wary of adverts promising high returns on crypto asset investments. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today.
but I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us in the studio. It's Katina Anglin, together with Brother Joseph Ebanks, sharing with us. It's the Christian Association for Civics and Political Education. Ms. Katina, always grateful for you to share with us, and I commend your discipline, your determination, and that drive that you have. It makes us realize, as you shared, what you can do with faith, and if you press on, what is indeed possible. So, with that, thank you, Mom.
Thank you very much, Dwayne. Thank you, Cayman Islands, for tuning in today again. And let us start off first with a prayer for the nation by Brother Joey. Sure. Thank you.
Let's pray. Our most gracious and merciful Father, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy upon us, O Lord. Father, we lift up this show in this time, O Lord, that you may be glorified in it. Let everything that we say here, Father, be ordained by you. Have control of our voices, Father, and use them to bring honor and to bring glory to you, Lord. We lift up the government of the Cayman Islands, Lord, and we ask, O Lord, that you will be in the rooms with them and guide them according to your will, Father. We recognize that time is short. We recognize that this world must be brought to an end, Father. That is your plan. And so, Father, we ask that you will guide us, your children, by your Spirit, that we may hear you and do your will, always in your will, Father, completely surrendered now, living and obeying the Spirit within us. Guide us, Lord, that we may honor you and glorify you in all things. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. So I know that today we're going to have two different topics. One is starting off talking about the vaccine program and mandatory vaccinations, and I may not share the same view as the two of you or the same view as many in the country, but I'm going to share my view, and I'm going to share some laws regarding the government requirement for mandatory vaccinations. And I bear in mind the sanction by the Human Rights Commission for the government to impose mandatory vaccinations on work permit holders for renewal of their work permits. It is particularly that part of the law that greatly distresses me. Being a human being and having under my care 3 helpers who have not left this country since this country was shut down. And all 3 of them, in addition to many other people in this country who have reached out and said, I'm being violated. I don't want to take the vaccine. I don't know what the outcome will be. It is not an approved vaccine. It is not in my belief system to rely on vaccines. My trust is in the Lord. And those lot of comments are protected under the Bill of Rights and in every other charter it is in the world, starting with the Declaration of Rights and the Convention, the ECHR Convention on Human Rights, Fundamental Rights and Responsibilities. I think first we should start out by thinking about the atrocities against human beings in the past and even today. Because human beings today are human beings of yesterday. Regardless of whether or not they are born with the deformities, they are human beings. And when Germany started off, they started off with cleansing of disabled people, handicaps, those that didn't meet their concept of what a human being looked like. And if you get a bit further on in time, you see that slaves were abused, hung, castrated, whipped, thrown in the boiling cauldrons and so on. Because we didn't see them as human beings either. Although they were human beings, upright, 2 eyes, nose, mouth, hands, worked in the fields, spoke English. Some still spoke foreign languages. But nonetheless, obvious to us that they were human beings, but we choose to disregard it for our own personal purposes and accomplishments and even wicked gratifications. Now, I'm not saying that that is the reason why the government has imposed the mandatory vaccination for work permit renewals. But I just want to remind us that every human being in this country is only and every bit of that human being and deserving of our protection, deserving of our respect, and deserving of the right to accept or reject medical treatment. If either one of my helpers were to say to me, I have cancer and I don't want to take chemotherapy, I would respect that as deeply, as greatly as I do now when they say I don't want to take the vaccine. You see, Dwayne and Joey, I don't have an alternative. I don't have a remedy. I don't have a recourse if the vaccine has a negative outcome for them. There's no way for me to pump it back out from them. I can't cleanse their cells. And the truth of the matter is that statistics throughout the world is proving that the vaccine really isn't good. It isn't risk-free. It isn't beneficial to everyone who takes it. Some people have died from it. Some people have ended up with disabilities and palsy and paralysis, and the list goes on. Hundreds, tens of hundreds of side effects have been recorded. And anyone who disputes this, just go check the VAERS program themselves. And then contact me after the show and tell me I was wrong about the list of side effects that abounds with this so-called vaccine. And I don't see why the Cayman Islands government should be imposing a mandatory medical experimental action against a class of people in this country simply because they have the power to do so. In other words, arbitrarily. And I say it's arbitrary because they're imposing it simply because they have the power to do so. Because if work permit holders want to renew their work permit, they're going to have to take the vaccine. And is this all within the scope of what medical experimentation is about? No, it isn't, because the international charters protects us from that. And is this how we as a society are supposed to behave against the people who are in our country? No. We're not supposed to set work permit holders one side and say, well, if you want to make money, guess what? You're going to have to take something that could cause your death. That's literally like raping somebody. If you don't want me to cut your throat, just give it up. That's not how we treat human beings. Now, one of the things I'm going to say is this. And first, let me confess this. Maybe I have it all wrong. Maybe my moral convictions have just overridden my legal understanding. And maybe my legal understanding is wrong in the first instance of this. Maybe I'm all wrong. And I would invite anyone in the legal fraternity to sit with me and show me that I am wrong, because they believe that I am right, but I am willing to be corrected if I am wrong. And sometimes we should never get to the point in our existence where it takes the law for us to undertake and execute our moral duties as human beings to human beings. When we looked at the road code last time when we were on, yes, and we saw that Section 64 of the road code set out the moral obligations that we have one to the other, and it's it's good that it's in there, but it's a bit sad that you have to inscribe it into the law of the country, that you have a responsibility and a duty to drive in such a manner as to protect and preserve the life of another individual who you could meet up with on the road. So as we're driving down this road of progress and economic prosperity and so on and so forth, let us not run over those who have come to this country and literally built this country, because they're going to tell you something, Dwayne. I don't think that there are very many buildings, whether personal homes or commercial structures, that the sweat of Jamaicans not in them. And if for some reason there's a structure here, the few that there may be that's built from concrete, doesn't have the sweat of the Jamaican man building it, it has the sweat of the Jamaican domestic helper who mop in those tiles. We don't get the right to run them over for them to be able to continue to maintain their families back at home. We were grateful to take them in so that we didn't have to clean our own bathrooms. But now we're going to penalize them for the right to earn that, to maintain their families back at home through the imposition of a mandatory medical experiment against their freedom of thought and conscience and against that which is set out in law. And like I say, maybe I have it wrong. And I hope that I am wrong, because then I can at least fall back then on the legal side of me and say, okay, well, you're going to have to put your morals aside, because the legal issue has clarified that it overrides your moral responsibility to the people in this country who in this time and in this situation feel that they are oppressed and disrespected and disregarded, and in the view of some of them being set up to die. Maybe someone can come along and help me with some legal guidance that could possibly, not likely, possibly cause me to set aside my moral obligation to the other human beings in this country at this time.
Yeah, as I listen to what you're sharing, Katina, and certainly want to appreciate what you feel from the perspective of the legal ramifications, the imposition, and the moral consciousness as well. But just as a clarification, that site you referenced, VAERS, is that one that people can contribute the information and on, especially in relation to the vaccine, what they think may have any kind of side effects or whatever been caused with the vaccine. Then the US's CDC would then sort of investigate, put it all together, and then make a determination. Is that how that works?
That's the very site that I'm talking about. Okay. I don't have a link to it at this time.
So, but it's not. But at that stage, it's not verified information. What's on there? It's information that's put up by people, and then the CDC will then come along
and they compile it.
Okay.
And I have seen compiled information from that site that's quite astounding and alarming. But anyone who wants more information about VAERS can just type in the acronym VAERS and perhaps CDC beside it, and they'll get.
All right. To those who would share that a country can impose conditions, restrictions, limitations, but conditions on entry to that country. One would probably say, well, students, for instance, going to universities may be required to do or not do, have certain injections or not. If you're traveling, you're probably advised, but it may be required. With what our local Human Rights Commission is called, and the government sort of saying, well, if you are going to be working here, then as part of your sort of condition, but this is just another thing that you need to do, morally or legally aside. Could not the country do that to say to people who are coming in, especially to work?
It can. And let me answer that question a bit more in depth when we return from the commercial break.
All right. Perfect.
All right. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. See that line? Stay tuned. We're going to hear that answer.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands.
William Stephen Ryan, J.P., 1838 to 1910.
William Ryan was the first Ryan born on Cayman Brac. He was appointed Justice of the Peace in 1877 and Stipendiary Justice for Cayman Brac in 1893. Court was held at his home, which was located on Ryan's Drive, across the road from the Ryan Family Cemetery, where he is buried. He was married to the former Catherine A. Scott, with whom he had 3 children, William, Amis, and James Scott. Amis was the grandmother of former District Commissioner Kenny Ryan. Bill, as he is known to friends and family, made his living fishing and turtling. The family recalls that he would never leave his nets out on a Sunday. He always pulled them up on Saturday night and put them back out on Monday morning.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
At Subway, we know a meal isn't quite complete without a side, and that's why we're introducing waffle fries. Subway's waffle fries are oven-baked softness with extra crispy edge, giving a satisfying taste to be enjoyed as is or in any of Subway's dipping sauces. Order waffle fries as a side item for $2 or make it a meal deal. Subway, eat fresh.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And as we continue our discussion, brought to you by the Christian Association for Civics and Political Education, Ms. Katina Anglin, together with Brother Joey Ebanks. Thanks for sharing us. Now, just before the break, we had asked the question
about entry
into
immigration control
right.
for the safety of public health.
Right. So,
okay.
And the
for
question
protection of public health and safety. Let me work through this in a logical manner, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to answer the question, but I think it's better that I lay out certain protocols first.
Okay.
And then when I get around to dealing with the answer for that question, it will make better sense.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're dealing with here is something that had originally been declared a public health emergency previously.
Mm.
We know that it's no longer a public health emergency because the restrictions that had been set in place by the government during that state of emergency have been lifted. We now move freely through society. Some of the measures that were put in place was social distancing, mandatory requirement of masks, and we were all encouraged to do frequent hand washing. And there were some places where they put security guards. I call them public health guards, because they weren't really security guards at that moment. What they were doing was they were acting in a public health capacity, dispensing sanitizer. Forcibly, but dispensing sanitizer at the doorway. Or if you had your container, you stood there, you squeeze it in your hand in front of them, and they let you in at some places, right? So the government had recognized ways to protect public health in a state of emergency.
Mm-hmm.
The United Nations Declaration on Human Rights allows for the government to take certain actions in the event of a public emergency, or state of emergency. And I'll read from Article 4 of the UN Convention. And it says at 4.1, in a time of public emergency which threaten the life of a nation, and the existence of which is officially proclaimed, the state parties to the present covenant may take measures derogating from their obligations under the present covenant to the extent strictly required by the exigencies of the situation, provided that such measures are not inconsistent with their other obligations under international law and do not involve discrimination solely on the ground of race, color, sex, language, religion, or social origin. No derogation from Article 6, 7, 8, paragraphs 1 and 2 of 8, 11, 15, 16, and 18 may be made under this derogation. Article 6 is the inherent right to life. 7 is that no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. In particular, no one shall be subjected without his free consent to medical or scientific experimentation. Article 8 is that no one should be held in slavery, no one should be held in servitude. Article 11 is no one shall be in prison on the ground of an ability to fulfill a contractual obligation. 15 is that no one should be held guilty of a criminal offence on account of an act or omission which did not constitute a criminal offence. 16 is that everyone shall have the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. And 18 is everyone shall have the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. So while Article 4 allows for you as the government to put in place certain measures, those measures are not to violate the articles that were just read out. Now, the United Nations further issued a paper in April of 2020 about government responses to COVID-19. And I'll read it out. It'll be a little bit lengthy, but I'll get through it as quickly as possible. But this is for the understanding of all persons. And anyone who doesn't understand it or has further questions or would like to engage with me in discussion on it, which I would appreciate, you can contact me at 922-6644. So the emergency measures in COVID-19 guidance, and these are excerpts from it that are relevant to the conversation now.
This is for the United Nations.
This is the United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner COVID-19 Response. Human rights at the heart of response. Topics in focus is emergency measures in COVID-19, and it was issued on the 27th of April 2020. This was issued when there was a worldwide crisis. Things have, since April of 2020, the medical industry throughout the world has learned a whole lot more about COVID-19. What they have also learned is that depending on how they use the PCR machine, they could end up at a higher rate of false positives. They also learned more about how the disease itself operated in the body. They learned that perhaps it's better to not put persons on ventilators right away, but give them oxygen treatment. And in the immediacy of COVID-19, a lot of medical teams throughout the world were immediately hooking people up to ventilators, and shortly after that they died. A ventilator is a mechanism for lung operation. If your lungs working perfectly, you shouldn't be on a ventilator. You may need oxygen treatment, but not a ventilator. So, if the restrictions in April of 2020, a year ago, just over, had specific guidance in the heat and height of a global emergency, and with the new and continuous research and the developments in medical treatment and the acknowledgement that ivermectin is a treatment, prevention and treatment for COVID-19, and other things that they have learned, and the understanding that COVID-19 can be asymptomatic in greatest amount of the results, some 98.9 I think it is, which means you're running around with something and it having absolutely no effect on your body. It's kind of like having bacteria on the palm of your hand right now. You have it. It's not doing you any harm. You're functioning perfectly with the existence of the bacteria that's on the palm of your hand. things have subsided, greater understanding, acknowledgement of asymptomatic diagnoses, ivermectin, it is safe for us to conclude that the restrictions of 2020 are no longer absolutely applicable in the year 2021. And I don't think that they're going to get any resistance from anyone in the legal world about that part of it. But let's look at how they say that we should treat it back in 2020. It says, even without formally declaring states of emergency, states can adopt exceptional measures to protect public health that may restrict certain human rights. These restrictions must meet the requirements of legality, necessity, proportionality, and be non-discriminatory. Now, discrimination, you can kind of wrap discrimination up in a definition that says that two people with the same characteristics are being treated differently in the same situation. All right? So, since I'm looking at the work permit holder renewal in Cayman, and using my own help as my example, being in a household with me, my mother, so we got 3 women, 2 of whom are Caymanian, and one's a work permit holder, is subjecting one to a mandatory vaccination, while the other 2 have the option. Is that discriminatory treatment? And I'm going to say unequivocally no, it is. Because there is no difference, besides the fact that we are 2 different human beings, in the situation, the living conditions and arrangements between me and my helper. And I have someone who loves and cares and respects my mother. And I'm about to lose her because the government wants to treat her differently than it is treating me. And dare not even dare suggest to me that I have to take a mandatory vaccination. But since I'm at this point, I won't get this out now, because I know where it is that this step ladder is going. Because if you had walked in first and said, hey, we're going to vaccinate everybody, the island would have turned upside down. So it has gone incrementally, just like how the Nazis did it in Germany. This section first, the old, the vulnerable. The next section was the frontline workers. Then they made this big brouhaha and they said, hey, we can even vaccinate your children now. And
but have they approved it for in the UK? The young children? Hasn't been just here, right?
Yeah.
No, not the UK.
Now we at the domestic. Now we at the work permit holders. So who you think next in line? I hope you're getting prepared to stand if you have no intention of taking a vaccination. And when I say you, are talking to all on it that are listening right now, because this is a step ladder towards mandatory imposition of a vaccination against your freedom of thought and conscience and religion. And there are some of us who as Christians have rested our faith wholly and solely in the Lord and said, no thank you. I will trust in the Lord, and I have every right to place my trust in the Lord. Someone said, well, but how can you do that? And so I can't see what's inside the vaccine. So if you're comparing the fact that I can't see God, I can't see what's in the vaccine. Will you want me to put my trust in? Someone who has delivered me out and who I have walked with and has walked with me, has always walked with me. I can see the obvious difference in my life since accepting Christ as my Lord and Savior to something in a vial that I don't know what it is. And that's a choice, no option that you want me to obey in my conscience. I don't have anything to obey. I trust in the Lord God strong and mighty, and that's where I shall remain. I see that we have to take a commercial break.
You see that, huh?
Yes, I do. So I will continue this when we return. Thank you very much.
All right, stay tuned.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Want your kids to gain social skills, independence, self-confidence indoors? King's Sports Center Art of Fun Summer Camp is the solution.
Make memories.
Learn new skills and life skills.
Activities include
basketball, football, dodgeball,
arts and crafts,
squash, drama,
kids aerobics,
bowling, and much, much more. King's Sports Center Art of Fun Summer Camp will be held from July 6th through August 6th. July 6th through August 6th. Monday to Friday from 8:30 a.m. until 5 p.m. Camp includes all activities, one lunch,
and 2 breaks.
For more information, call 946-5464 or email
kings@candw.ky.
Your one-stop facility for fitness, recreation, relaxation.
The West Bay Family Fair has something for everyone. Monday, July 5th, enjoy wholesome family fun with free admission to the inaugural West Bay Family Fair at the Ed Bush Stadium and West Bay Heritage Park. Bring your family and friends and learn how to make silver touch rope, blow a concord, or spin a gig. Local arts and crafts will be on sale, and vendors will offer up the best in traditional foods and treats for the kids. Kids of all ages will have their faces painted and participate in several sporting events with McGee's Adventure Park. But wait, there's more. Don't miss the early morning cycle race, the farmers market, live entertainment, awesome raffle prizes, and find out who will win the beautiful baby contest. Stay for the 2-mile fun run and walk and football tournament showcasing some of West Bay's legends. For more information, email noelw@candw.ky or call 916-2134. West Bay Family Fair, Monday, July 5th, Ed Bush Stadium, starting at 7 a.m. This advert is brought to you by Williams Productions and Radio Cayman.
Census 2021. Cayman, get ready. Census starting 10th of October 2021. Census West Bay, you're ready. Census East End, we're coming. Census everyone will be counted. Census 2021. Census information is secret. Census 2021. Census starting October 10th. 2021 census. 2021 census. Census. Census.
2021 census. Everyone counts.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us in the studio. Ms. Katina Anglin and Brother Joey Eubanks, the Christian Association for Civics and Political Education. Now, you're talking about human rights. You're reading from the European Union, or European
Nations Human Rights.
The UN. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Go through with us, Ms. Katina.
So, coming on from the last paragraph were the 4 requirements to restrict rights in the event of a national emergency: legality, necessity, proportionality, and non-discrimination. So a quick layout about legality and those 3 things is that the law must not be arbitrary or unreasonable, and it must be clear and accessible to the public. Necessity means that a restriction must be necessary for the protection of one of the permissible grounds stated, which include public health and must respond to oppressed and social need. Proportionality means that a restriction must be proportional to the interests at stake, which, in other words, that it must be appropriate to achieve its protective function, and it must be the least intrusive option among those that might achieve the desired result. Let me just read that again. It must be appropriate to achieve its protective function, and it must be the least intrusive option among those that might achieve the desired result. I'm going to come back to the proportionality principle in just a minute. It must also be free from non-discrimination. No restriction shall discriminate contrary to the provisions of international human rights law. Legislation and measures should be strictly temporary in scope, the least intrusive to achieve the stated public health goals, and include safeguards such as sunset or review clauses. Sunset means the time when it's set to expire. Or review clauses in order to ensure return to ordinary laws as soon as the emergency situation is over. Some rights, such as the right to life, the prohibition from torture, and the principle of legality in criminal law, cannot be derogated from even during states of emergency and continue to apply in all situations. Emergency declarations based on COVID-19 outbreak should not be used as a basis to target particular individuals or groups, including minorities. Measures must be taken not to involve prohibited discrimination on any grounds such as race, color, sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity, disability, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. It then goes ahead to lay out about Article 4 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which is where I actually started from. So let me go back to the principle of proportionality, and then I want to look at the prohibited discrimination. So the measures that government takes must not exceed, they cannot take draconian measures. They can't carry it to the far end of the scale and apply those if there are alternatives available to the government that they can achieve the same outcome without taking a sledgehammer to a nut. So what we did in the emergency was mask, hygiene, and social distancing. They worked fine. Government applauded us. Government said, well done, my good and faithful subjects of this country. We have managed to curtail by locking the country down and everybody adhering to the guidelines we had set out, emergency guidelines. We've managed to keep this thing under control. Got some community outbreaks. We got those under control, social distancing, quarantining individuals, testing and retesting, and so on. The least intrusive of measures. At no time did they say, oh, so we're going to force you to try this medication, which could have deathly consequences as a result of you having tested positive for COVID-19. They didn't do that. Now we have the situation under control. We know that these protective, least intrusive protective measures have worked, can still continue to work. But yet we want to step away from that to make mandatory against a particular class of individuals in the country vaccination, which is not really a vaccination because it's not really truthfully classified as a vaccination. It's a new chemical creation called mRNA. And we're going to force a particular class of people in the country who have existed in the country through the outbreak during a period of emergency to accepting and receiving a medical treatment or experiment against their will. Why do I say that it is discriminatory? Or do they have the power to apply this discriminatory practice? It is discriminatory because you have picked work permit holders and said, if you want your work permit renewed, you're going to have to take this vaccine. But I, as a Caymanian and a permanent resident, can move freely throughout the country, go to work every day, work until 9 p.m. at the night, or later, however many hours I want to work, wherever I choose to work, whoever I choose to work for, I'm giving free rein. I've been in the country. My helper has been in the country. She is forced to take a vaccine that I can't and won't be subjected to taking because she's a work permit holder. I have family members who have left this country at least 3 times since last year and returned back home, was put in quarantine, tested, and released. No vaccine. Why my helper, in order for me to get her permit renewed, either one of the 3, why they have to take something that the outcome of it is not known to them?
But just go back to what you shared. I mean, you read from, the European, the United Nations and the Declaration of Human Rights and the like, relative to the articles that you referenced. But again, immigration controls on entry, but would they also not apply? Okay, you permit to enter, but since you're here, you're still subject to some sort of immigration control. So to remain or would they not apply similarly?
This is the question that you asked before the last break.
Yeah.
They're building up to, right?
Okay.
So now that I covered the ICC PPR,
what's it stand for?
Sorry.
International.
The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Yeah. And the United Nations COVID-19 response. Having laid those platforms, now let's go to the document that they relied on, the Cayman Islands Constitution.
Okay.
Right? And so the question is, in governance of persons who are not Caymanian in and out and dependent on work permit, to which immigration has been given certain controls under the Constitution, is it still discriminatory or within reason? Section 16 of the Constitution applies to discrimination. And it sets it at 16 subsection 4b. That with the respect to the, let me go back to subsection 4. Subsection 1 shall not apply to any law so far as that law makes provision with respect to the entry into or exclusion from. So this is your border passage. This is your immigration issue. Or the employment. This is your work permit rate, the right to work, gainful occupation. Engaging in a business or profession. Because there are restrictions that are put in place not only by immigration but by DCI as well. You have to meet certain requirements. You don't meet them, immigration have the right. You need to meet certain immigration rates in order to get your DCI approval as well. So it's not just about immigration, but it's also about business and about the profession. And so even if you take the health practitioners law, you don't just come to the country and say, hey, I'm a doctor. You need to put this information out there, right? So it's a bit broader than just engaging. It's a bit broader than just issuing a work permit. It's about managing that. And there are certain areas of the work sector that we've tried to keep protected for Caymanians. And one of the ongoing battles is the North Sound and the competition between foreign business holders in the North Sound against Caymanians who that by inheritance is ours. And we've always run that North Sound, and nobody does it like West Bay's, and I'm proud to say that. But it's a Cayman thing, right? Taxes also is another protected field. You have to be Caymanian, whether that is by birth or Caymanian by marriage, Caymanian by right, in order for you to get a tax license. So to meet these things for profession or business, you need to immigration and other departments can impose restrictions on it, right? Movement or residence within the Cayman Islands of persons who are not Caymanian. They have the right to do certain things. But I didn't read it in there where that carried on to say, except for public health or safety. It says immigration has the right to keep a certain control over people in the country, including knowing where you are residing, because the day that you don't meet the requirements for immigration, they won't be able to know they can come and knock on top of that door and say, hello, immigration enforcement. You have a repatriation order for you. That's a part of what that residence within is about. And your movement on your work permit, that movement is also applicable to your work permit. You can't get a permit to work with me and go work with Joey. And you can't get a work permit with me to work as a mason and go work washing dishes. All right? Those are the restrictions. And yes, they can apply discriminatory measures against individuals seeking to gain lawful occupation in the Cayman Islands. But does that give you the right to treat an individual in the Cayman Islands on a work permit differently than you're treating me, who they're working for, who have the same behavior patterns as me, differently than you're treating me? No, it doesn't. If you want to look at it and say, so what about granting a work permit for somebody overseas and requiring for them to have the vaccine? Quote unquote vaccine. I can understand some logic to that because you don't know for sure what they have been exposed to in the country that they are in. I got you on that. I understand that. But you're still requiring that they have a negative PCR test when they arrive. And now it's down to 5 days for quarantine? So there are least intrusive measures still applicable. You don't need to demand a vaccination of anybody. What you need to be able to do is this movement and residence within. And so they have put out these body tracker things that if you breach quarantine, they come pick you up and they throw you in jail like Skylar Mike. There are least intrusive means and measures than forcing someone to take a vaccination that cannot be withdrawn. And listen, the day that they tell me that they have a way that they can kill the effects of the vaccine if it goes rogue in your body, I go and step down, stand down. I go in to say to my helper, come, let's me and you go together and get it. Maybe. If God came down and said to me, trust in the vaccine instead of trusting in me, he not come tell me that either. All right? But at least I could understand if there was some provision put in place to protect the body away from the negative effects. You know, you go running through the desert and you get struck by a rattlesnake. If you can get to the hospital on time, they can give you an anti-venom serum to undo the effects or stop the effects of what the venom is doing to you. Okay, good. But I haven't heard that proposition yet. And I don't think it's coming because they can't figure out what it is that they're dealing with, because they haven't managed to pin down one variant of it before they issue the injection. And then while they were issuing that, they said, hey, you have a new variant, we're going to have to create a new vaccine serum. Where are we going with this? When is the end for this? I mean, how does it stop? Where's the next depot? And everybody who has 2 licks of sense have their own questions about this. You know? And the UN Declaration against medical treatment, the right against forced medical treatment, is the encapsulation of the Nuremberg Code. Following the atrocities against the Jews in the Holocaust. They had the trial back in August of 1947, and out of that, it's also called the doctor's trial. And out of that, 7 were sentenced to death by hanging. 23 defendants were found guilty. 7 were sentenced to death by hanging. 5 to life imprisonment. 2 to imprisonment for 25 years. 1 to imprisonment for 15 years. And 1 to imprisonment for 10 years. Only 7 were acquitted. And the sentences were confirmed by the military governor. The executions were carried out at the Landsberg prison. The UN Declaration on Human Rights and subsequently the ECHR Convention is a result of the Holocaust and the Nuremberg Code. Today we have a responsibility to protect individuals from medical experiments that they are not consenting to. There are people in the world who rent their bodies out to medical experiments. They sign up for testing and trials of new drugs. They live in controlled environments, easily accessible to medical treatment, so on and so forth. That's okay. They want to do that. That's fine. They're consenting willingly to being human guinea pigs. That's their choice. Don't subject other people to it. As a matter of fact, the Nuremberg Code sets out exactly how this is supposed to and not supposed to work. And I want to go into, I'm not going to read the whole entire thing, or maybe I should, but we'll see how that goes. Here is section 1 of the Nuremberg Code. And I took this one from the New England Journal of Medicine. Mm-hmm. But you can just Google Nuremberg Code and you can choose a site you want to get it from. And I encourage people to read up on how it came into existence. Why did the judges find it necessary to encapsulate these principles and issue it out? And why does the medical industry find it necessary to treat the Nuremberg Code when they are in research as their Bible? And here's why. Here is one of 10 reasons how it's supposed to work and why. The voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. This means that the person involved should have legal capacity to give consent, should be so situated as to be able to exercise free power of choice. So this thing about if you want your work permit renewed is not free power of choice. That is arbitrary application. Let me start again. Sorry. This means that the person involved should have legal capacity to give consent, should be so situated as to be able to exercise free power of choice without the intervention of any element of force, fraud, deceit, duress, overreaching, or other ulterior form of constraint or coercion, and should have sufficient knowledge and comprehension of the elements of the subject matter involved as to enable him to make an understanding and enlightened decision. This latter element requires that before the acceptance of an affirmative decision, so before him saying yes, by the experimental subject, there should be made known to him the nature, the duration, and the purpose of the experiment, the method and means by which it is to be conducted, all inconveniences and hazards reasonably to be expected, and the effects upon his health or person which may possibly come from his participation in the experiment. The duty and responsibility for ascertaining the quality of the consent rests upon each individual who initiates, directs, or engages in the experiment. It is a personal duty and responsibility which may not be delegated to another with impunity. There's another part of this that speaks about the coercion.
I'm speaking to Ms. Catino. Yeah. Good.
Sorry.
The coercion.
This is it. Proper preparation, at point 7. Proper preparation should be made in adequate facilities provided to protect the experimental subject against even remote possibility of injury, disability, or death. They're giving people a stick in their arm, sending them home. Observe them 15 minutes, send them home.
Yeah, 5 for those who get the second, 10 for the ones who get the first.
Oh, that's where the 15 comes up at? Okay. Thanks for pointing that out.
That's what I was told.
The experiment, I'd point through the experiment should be so designed and based on the results of animal experimentation and a knowledge of the natural history of the disease or other problem on the study that the anticipated results will justify the performance of the experiment. So the kickback going to be that, oh, well, this isn't an experiment. It isn't. Why people sign in waiver forms? Why is the government having to sign waiver forms against the creators of these mRNAs so that they don't get financial repercussions when the side effects kicks in, because they are conducting a global assessment? Since you don't want to say it's an experiment, it's called a global assessment of the vaccination program that they have embarked on. And it's an atrocity against humans, and it is an atrocity against work permit holders in this country who have existed in this country during COVID-19, haven't left this country, and for the sake of being able to feed their families, they are being forced to receive a jab in the arm that could cost them their life or serious side effects so that they can feed their families back at home, and the government went fundamentally wrong in passing that law. That is my position, and I am sticking by it, and I have the law to prove that I am right. And I invite anybody and everybody to come sit down and let's talk about this, because I am open to be shown that I am wrong. God bless the Cayman Islands. Brother Joey, I don't know if you have anything to contribute to this discussion this afternoon, but please feel free to.
Oh, she didn't give you time over.
No.
Well, thank you, honestly.
Oh, my goodness. I'm sorry.
But you were judicious and you used it. Yeah, so it was great.
But he have...
No.
No?
No.
Nothing?
No.
Oh, no, because Paul, who was good to me,
was better
has
for
to
him.
make a commercial break.
Yeah. But you'll come back again? We'll talk?
I will.
Yeah.
And Brother Joey, you can write something and share it. Dwayne can announce it on another part of the show.
See that?
What you're...
She got all in control.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I can write this though.
Oh.
It's it would take quite a bit of writing, quite a bit of reading.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, thank you very much, right?
Okay.
For your presence and your company, and hopefully through this discussion. Enjoy the rest of it. We'll chat when we do.
Yeah.
And to listeners, let's pause and get the news when you come back. Hey, I'll be here.
God
Stay
bless
tuned.
you.
When you're tight on time and budget, but big on flavor, Subway's Meal of the Day hits the spot. Enjoy daily meals on classic sandwiches like tuna, Black Forest ham, meatball marinara, and more. Starting at $6.25 for 6-inch meals and $8.75 for footlongs. You can get Subway's Meal of the Day. Enjoy a different sandwich on a different day for the same price. Mix it up with cookies or chips or waffle fries for the same price. Subway. Eat fresh.
Make your house into a home. Welcome to Brand Source Home Gallery, your source for premium products and a premium experience. We'll design and install your dream kitchen with crafted cabinets, complemented with elegant appliances. We'll fill it with quality houseware and cookware. Custom designed closet and storage solutions organize and beautify any area. And with the finest bedding, you'll get a perfect night's sleep knowing Brand Source Home Gallery has everything you need to make your house a home.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands. The ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom. The land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
To date, 91,533 COVID-19 vaccinations have been given in total in the Cayman Islands. Of these, 47,943, 67% of an estimated 71,100 had at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine, and approximately 61% have completed the two-dose course. The vaccine supply for clinics on Grand Cayman has been replenished. Vaccine clinics have resumed and are now offering both first and second doses. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines. In news elsewhere, India's Covishield jab is not eligible for a European Union travel pass for vaccinated tourists, reports say. Covishield is the Indian-made version of AstraZeneca, which is eligible for the EU-wide pass or digital green certificate set to launch on July 1st. And U.S. drugs giant Johnson & Johnson is to pay $230 million to settle claims it fueled an opioid addiction crisis in New York State. The firm did not admit liability or wrongdoing in settling with the state. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Student registration for the 2021-2022 academic school year is open to the public from 8th April to 30th June 2021. Students must now be registered online at schools.edu.ky. Parents will have the ability to enter their students' information and securely upload all relevant documents. If you need assistance, please contact the Department of Education Services at 945-1199 or email edu.registration@gov.ky.
For information that matters to you, the people. Hear from the government, the opposition, independents, and other experts on issues and solutions that affect you. For the record. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, tune into 89.9 and 93.9 FM from 7:30 to 9 a.m. for Cayman's new Straight Talk morning show. For the record.
I invite you to join me for the record. You are invited to be a part of this interesting and informative show. Embrace the opportunity to dialogue with your legislators, policymakers, and those charged with policy implementation.
For the record.
Brought to you by Coca-Cola. Available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors.
Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back and thanks for sharing with us. 1-800-534-8255 or 949. What's the number? 8037 or WhatsApp 925-3261. Let's go to the phones. Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, good afternoon to you, Sterling.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How are you?
Pretty good, man. How you doing?
Well, blessed and thankful, you know. We'll give it a good Lord, thanks for another day.
Bless God, yeah, indeed. So sorry that I missed my friend there that was in the studio with you. When I called at the last minute, didn't realize that she wasn't going to be beyond the break.
Yes, sir.
Going to give her some good little, we want to have a nice raspberry row on the phone.
You go ahead, man. I'll pretend that, No,
so
she'll hear you.
You or her?
No, I can't do that. I'm not 6'4", man.
No, listen. Let me preface, and so I won't waste a lot of your time now because of that. But let me preface anything I'm going to say now by saying that I heard some very interesting things there that I know she and I at one point in time certainly agreed on in regards to the approach for at that time what we certainly considered to be the experiment for fake mosquitoes. And so a lot of the same applications for human rights and those at that particular time is applicable now. And I heard a lot of very similar things there. And obviously I was of a similar conviction at that particular point in time. I did have a little chuckle to myself, though in that regard when I was thinking about that aspect of it, because it's interesting that human rights are so applicable and so really great now for this particular context. But then when we're dealing with other matters or other subject areas, human rights seems to be the spoiled egg in the basket and that we're going to hell in the handbasket, no pun intended, because we have human rights to protect people's rights. That's an interesting one. But that said, I did wanted to challenge my friend on a couple of things that I heard her say, and just throw some questions to her because it's important that I heard her that I would hear her response to it. And one of them was she mentioned about not knowing, for example, just deal with it. I'm not going to get into the scientific thing because I don't claim to be a scientist. Certainly, I never did. But when we talk about not knowing what's in the vaccines, well, Dwayne, when I have a little pain in my head, I take Panadol, and I don't have a clue what's in Panadol, but it works really well. And, I have to reconcile when you come to me with a very common response of, I don't know what's in the vaccine. Well, then you tell me what's in most of the medications that we take, and they work really well. There's a degree of perhaps trust, if nothing else. I needed to hear some sort of rationale to help me to connect that little dot. There was another thing that was said. Dwayne, when I think about the vaccines, when we talk about, we developed the mRNA vaccine, I need to understand then how countries like Cuba, who's produced their own vaccine, or Russia, who've produced their own vaccine, and in the case of China, on the fringes as well. We're not talking about these other countries, South Korea and all that. We don't talk about the nice Pfizer and stuff because we hear they're nice American ones. But there are a lot of other countries that have produced their own vaccines. So did they get the memo too that's going around or something that they're looking to wipe the world out? I mean, I'm just trying to throw it out there. I'm just talking layman terms, just meeting it like, Cuba got the memo too that we're looking to put something in there that's going to kill us otherwise. I suppose what I'm getting at is that there is a great difference, and we can't lose sight of that fact. I mean, we can take all the legalese we want and all those applications, but at the end of the day, it either boils down to, in my mind anyway, in my little small mind, whether we believe that there is a pandemic, that there is a virus that actually kills, and that the medical world is trying to really deal with that. That's at the end of the day what we're dealing with. From that basis, in my mind, we work forward.
Right. If I can ask, in relation to the other countries that have developed or are developing their injections and the like, is it you understand that in our sort of protocols that if people entering the country they have taken the Pfizers and the others, they can come in and their entry and period of house arrest is less than if they don't take it, from these countries that are not yet recognized, so to speak?
I think there is. I may have to go doing shortly, but my understanding is that there is a clear requirement for many of these places that there be some sort of vaccination for people entering their particular country. Each particular country has its own protocols.
Right, but in our case, right, isn't it that if you take this one or this one, the ones that we recognize, then your stay is shortened. If you don't, then you like the rest that weren't.
Fair enough, but it's all, again, the basis, as we talked about a few weeks ago, everything is really common ground. It's new ground. There's nothing, everybody's trying to make sense of this and trying to get it right. And I think that's the basis from which most places are working from. You know what I mean? And the vast majority of our visitors or work permit holders, for example, are coming from some of these key countries anyway that we all are familiar with. We'll pick up some other stuff a little bit later from you, though, okay?
Yeah, man.
I got to go, my day.
Enjoy your afternoon, man. Thank you, too.
Thank you, too.
Our one. All right, let's take the other caller. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good evening, Mr. Sterling. How are you today, sir?
I'm blessed, thankful, and you know what? Looking forward to the promise of tomorrow. How are you, my friend?
Well, I am here receiving the good blessings of the good Father above. Praise his name.
Amen, brother.
Yes, sir. I have a little issue, Mr. Sterling. I'd like to hear your opinion about it. The people here in Cayman, this Cayman that we're living in now, and I know you'll agree with me, it's not like the one when we were growing up. everybody had a lot of love and respect. And they had that thing called integrity about them and their principles. You know, and listen to me, Mr. Sterling.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was a human being, the incident would have been the same way, I think. You know, yesterday I was at home, just relaxing around 2:45 or somewhere there. We had a bit of rain in the Eastern District where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I was sitting down and I heard a big noise. Like, I thought it was thunder. And when I got up and I looked out, my whole chain link fence were completely down, one part of it, and I had a brand new garbage bin just made. It even had a power made on it, and that was in pieces. And I said, that must have been a lightning strike, because it sounded like a thunder. Mr. Sterling, when I went over there, I could see where the car had hit my neighbor's fence first. Then he hit the light pole, but that's a very strong light pole, although it went through I-1. And he destroyed my fence, Mr. Sterling. Even some pieces of his car, I know, or we've pieces of his car is still in my yard. But I just, no respect, no care, no love, didn't stop, didn't say anything, and it disappeared so fast, because when I heard it, I first thought it was thunder. And then when I got up and I look and I see my whole fence gone. But I'm saying this to say that I want the person that whoever hit my fence, I want to let them know that thank God for technology. My neighbor has cameras and we know who it is. And I just want that person to stop by. There's no anger or no vexation or anything about it. I am sad to know, because if it was an animal or a human being, the person would have done the same thing, just hit and continue going where they're going. But we know who the car is. We got him on camera, and I'm just asking them before I go to the police to stop by and let's talk about it. Let's reason together and hear the whole conclusion of it.
Yeah, so, well, hopefully that works out.
Know, it's not nice. Suppose somebody was out there, stand up out there, it would have been the same thing. You know? Years ago, Mr. Sterling, that would have never happened. In our time, that person would have stopped courteously. I hit your fence. That accidents happen, very simple, very easy. But that is just the person that doesn't have no ethic, no culture, no respect. You know,
yes, sir. All right. Well,
you know how
the person will come forward, man. Yeah, they just had to, take care of things, and they'll be there to sort it out with you. Gotta have faith, right? All right. But thanks for sharing. I hope you get it all resolved, amongst yourselves without having to.
Thanks to technology, so just asking a person. I give them until Friday to come by until I go to the police about it.
All right.
So you have a good day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, too. And you do as well. We'll pause, take a quick break, join the other callers when we come back. Please stay tuned.
Busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Things just got a bit hotter on the island. Come in today and order the new spicy Korean subs at Subway. They're sweet, spicy, and especially satisfying. Stop in and try the pulled pork with spicy Korean sauce. Or the chicken with spicy Korean sauce. And you can message WhatsApp at 929-4658. Order online or use Let's Eat or the Bento app. The spicy Korean subs at Subway in 2 flavors. Extra saucy and extra spicy. Subway. Eat fresh.
The HSA Specialist Clinic has relocated to a new, modern, state-of-the-art facility at Smith Road Center to offer you a better patient experience. Receive care from top specialists in chiropractic, complementary and alternative medicine, neurology, ENT, urology, pain management, and more. Our orthopedic and telemedicine clinics remain at the Cayman Islands Hospital campus. Please remember to bring your own face mask when visiting any HSA location. Visit our website, hsa.ky, to learn more. At the HSA, you matter to us.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. Are you aware of the performance of your pension plan? The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan provides quarterly fund fact sheets for our members to stay informed with the plan's performance. For the year ended 30th of April, 2021, the various life cycle funds have provided returns between 10.5% and 43.2%. And our all-in expense ratio for year ended 30th of June, 2020 is currently the lowest it's ever been. 0.72%. Visit chamberpension.ky to review our fund fact sheets. You can see the performance as far back as 10 years. Remember that pensions are a longer-term investment strategy. Focus on the long term rather than the short-term returns. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan continues to perform for you.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. We go straight to the phones. Good afternoon. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Sterling Dwayne.
Hey, what's up?
Me again. I stepped out where I could get a little bit more privacy.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't think I did also my friend justice and fully understanding, certainly articulating that I understand the position that she's sharing and the very learned position from which she's coming from with it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not where I wanted to concentrate, because I wanted to actually speak to you from last week in regards to another issue that's been in my soul, so to speak, in regards to the whole entire reopening thing. But it just seems like every day you had on a different topic that it didn't mesh well with that. So, so I didn't bother to, but this kind of kick-started it. Finally, what I'll say in regards to my friend, though, is you asked me a very pertinent question. I think there are a few things, there are countries that are wrestling with where do we stand on this and where the entire human rights consideration comes in versus people. And if I'm not mistaken, there is provisions, if I'm not mistaken, even within what we just recently passed that allows for people to deny the vaccine if they want to, just on free will, but also, I think, based on religious grounds. Now, I think from a Christian perspective, I mean, we've even had a pastor, local pastor, well-respected pastor, for example, share his views in the paper. I'd like to believe I'm as Christian as my good friend, and certainly you're talking to someone who's fully vaccinated, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have some degree of peace of mind. And there is stark evidence that's now growing that vaccinated people are much more secure from certainly getting death and getting gravely ill. I'm thinking right off of the story that just came out last week. I don't know if you saw it in Miami, or it was in Florida. I'm not sure if it was Miami, but I do believe it was Miami-Dade, where there was a small office complex. It was a federal building where there were 6 employees that worked very closely together, and one of them contracted the coronavirus and spread it to the other 6. And of those 6, 3 are in the hospital gravely ill, 2 has passed, and there was only one, a 23-year-old IT young man who'd actually got vaccinated who has not become sick at all. So, I mean, just looking at prima facie evidence, certainly that came out on the news, kind of should help raise your hopes about, the effectiveness of the vaccines. Like I said, Did I like the idea of having to put something in my body that I was unsure of? Perhaps not, but there is a degree of trusting from a scientific standpoint. It kind of reminds me of people who, for example, have to go through chemotherapy and that sort of thing for, hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, chemotherapy,
Yeah, for like cancer treatments. There's some people who deny it because they feel like it's a faith thing. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe a lot of people who are, for example, Jehovah Witnesses or whatever, I've heard only from secondhand, because I'm not a Jehovah Witness, that, for example, they'll deny it based on those things. Now, unfortunately, a lot of those people pass. Now, we know the evidence surrounding treatments, that there's not perhaps the best for the body, but there are many people who actually recover as a result of having taken the chemotherapy and the other thing there, So, there's arguments all around, but I think the world is just grappling with where to settle the dust on this. But Dwayne, the important thing that I want to talk about is our reopening. I'm feeling very uncomfortable. Again, you're talking to someone who's vaccinated. I shared with you a few weeks ago that the whole notion of being a guinea pig for how well vaccines work in a small community is not why I took the vaccine. And I'm concerned that because we haven't been able to see the ravages of COVID, thank the Lord, right up close and personal in terms of many of our people ended up either very ill or certainly haven't had deaths from it, that we're almost quick to want to throw everything to the side, because we haven't seen it. And I don't have a lot of faith. Let me just put this out there. I don't have a lot of faith, or I don't know if faith is the right word. I don't believe there are certain members of the Tourism Association, the leading body of that particular, the people who lead that. I don't have a lot of faith in their genuine, being genuine in their public, and the information that they put out there publicly, or their arguments or otherwise. I'm sorry, I'm a Caymanian, and I've lived in this country all my life, and so the experiences has been that they haven't been very pro-Cayman to start with. So me, kicking the doors down so that we can make sure that our hotels are going good isn't very exciting news for me. Now, notwithstanding, I can hear some of our Caymanian-owned businesses, some of the smaller ones, and I know one very well who's vocal, and I stand with him, and I can't imagine what it's like to see his business crumble. But you and I were rapping also about other ways that the government could have looked at helping businesses. So notwithstanding though that particular part of it, though, and that that I don't want that to be lost. The idea of us trying to appease this tourism, these big companies in tourism, so that we can expose our people to COVID, and to hell with those who didn't get vaccinated. And again, you're talking to someone who is vaccinated, who, for all intents and purposes, would like to believe some of the scientific evidence that's coming out that shows vaccinations are helping to prevent deaths and grave illness. That I'm not happy about the way that we're doing it. And this government, I should put them on warning that you have a government in the waiting, and who thinks that they're still entitled to govern us, who just lost the elections, who would be the first to come out and say we would handle it much more careful, and will blame them if this country starts to be really, starts to go really bad as a result of so quickly tearing down the doors. We're hearing that this new variant is really, really bad. And so I just want us to make sure that we are completely clear about what this reopening looks like, and that there are some of us, even vaccinated people, and certainly I'm speaking for myself again, I'm speaking for other people that I know very well, that we're not very comfortable because we're vaccinated to be able to just kick the doors open to appease some of these big companies who, at the end of the day, certainly from evidence, hasn't been very supportive to Caymanians. That's all I can say, buddy.
Yeah, well, as I listen to you, recognize, as you share the whole notion, but your last point, though, given the Westminster system to be labor under, is the government in waiting, the tail wagging the dog?
You know what, Dwayne? I'm going to turn that around. I'm going to praise the very good electoral process that we had and the smarts of the Caymanian people to go out there and make change, and to say that regardless of the fact that we're still under that system, at the end of the day, the power is in the people's hands, and we did a good job at changing that around. So it's always in our hands, huh?
You know, that's something that we should rely, always appreciate. If it's a healthy democracy, the public and the populace through the electorate has the voice. Hey, thank you very much, man.
Thank you too much.
Enjoy. The callers who share their thoughts, the listeners who opine from time to time, makes it for a healthy democracy. And sometimes, the views expressed by some will accord with others. Sometimes it'll cause us to question our own beliefs. Perhaps it'll amaze our own thought process. But end of the day, if it's a free and fair society, one where freedom of conscience, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, those freedoms that we probably take for granted, if we exercise them and we are respectful and civil in so doing, then maybe we'll appreciate the importance of that place in which we live, especially when we look and see that in places voters can't go to the polls, and when they do, there may be severe restrictions. When, other healthy, seemingly industrialized, civilized societies then abridge those freedoms, maybe it is, for the populace, again, responsibly and timely, assemble and ensure that those freedoms that were fought and championed and that were protected and preserved need to be continually enjoyed. But sometimes we're just not quite sure what's going on because we feel as if we're too busy just trying to keep our heads above water. Well, it is a wonderful place in which we live, and each and every one of us has a role to play, and if that role can be exercised freely, fairly, willingly, lovingly, then we may indeed find a greater sense of unity. I want to invite you to enjoy the rest of this afternoon. If it's raining where you are and you're out in the rain playing, well, don't just get wet. Actually enjoy it and give thanks. If you're looking at it and it may be that it has somehow hindered your plans, well, give thanks. Sadly, there are many who just love not only to play and dance and sing in the rain, but to be able to see it, taste it, smell it, and enjoy it. So everything can truly be a blessing if it is indeed embraced. Until tomorrow, be blessed.